Tadiandamol is the highest peak in Coorg district and the third highest peak in Karnataka actually. It is high on the list for any trekker in Karnataka, and so I found myself in a cab on Friday night heading towards Induranagar to take a bus to go to Tadiandamol on a trek organized by the Bangalore Mountaineering Club. We reached at about 4:30 in the morning and got about 2 hours of sleep before it was sunrise and we had to wake up for the trek. Getting out of the city at night and waking up the next day to a sunset accompanied by the chirping sounds of birds is always a joy. With the mountains in the background beckoning, there was just about enough time to do a quick session of bird watching and check out the different species around. When everyone was ready, it was time to set out. We met up with the rest of the group for breakfast, a quick round of introductions, and briefing by the trek leads, and then we were off for the trek. The trail started out easy enough, along a concrete road to coffee estates. Some interesting sights along the way included this nest of tree-dwelling ants. Although the start was easy, the climb was quite steep and not easy on a very hot day. The concrete road soon gave way to a muddy path. We soon reached our first breakpoint, where a board indicated that there was 3.75 kilometers left to the peak. It somehow didn't feel right, as we were expected to walk more than 8 kilometers to reach the peak. We were still at the base, but the first signs of the amazing scenery that awaited us began to reveal here. Not long after, we reached the forest checkpost, where we had to open up our bags for inspection for plastics. The trail took a sharp left here, and we got our first glimpses of the trail up ahead to the peak. The muddy forest path from here on was still easy going. With a camera with good zoom, you could just about make out people along the trail on top of the peak. It was at this point I realized, much to my horror, that my trusted trekking shoes of over 10 years was finally giving out. Although saddened, I was more worried about how I would continue the trek when it would finally come apart. I decided that worrying about it wasn't going to help at all, and to continue with the trek and see what happens along the way. Our next breakpoint was at this huge rock. There is a stream nearby, and we were reminded to refill our water bottles here, as there would be no further water sources ahead. From here on, both the terrain as well as the incline began to get progressively tougher. It wasn't getting any easy for my shoes either, with each slip or bump opening it up a little bit further. The steep mud path soon turned more rocky as we went further up. As if to compensate though, the scenery just kept improving. As we kept ascending, more and more of the surrounding hills became visible. We could see other trekkers far below on the trail that we had already covered, a sight that always gives us a sense of satisfaction. Our next halt was on a rocky ledge joining a shola forest patch. The views from here were spectacular and is a must-take selfie point. At this point, one of my fellow trekkers suggested that my long shoelaces could be used to bind the soles of the shoes, and I decided to give it a go. The trail then led into the forest patch. And very soon, we were back out onto the steep grassland path. There was a summit visible here, making us think that we had already reached. But this was not to be it, and the trail continued further beyond, becoming more and more steep as we went ahead. This felt like the final push as the path became steep, rocky, and slippery, with loose rocks and stones all around the way. The trick with the shoelace seemed to work, and my shoes were holding up fine. By this time, we were all sweaty and tired, but the actual summit came into view and made us all press on. Just before the summit was a grassy ledge with very promising views. It was beginning to be explored, but I had to leave it for the time being and move ahead with the intention of exploring it on my way back. A short while ahead, and almost without warning, I suddenly walked out onto the summit. Right on top, the scenery around is truly amazing. It takes your breath away. You can soak in the 360-degree views of the mountains all around. What you see around are the Western Ghats of Karnataka and Kerala border. The Ghats are covered with shola forest patches and shola grasslands that are unique to the region. These grassland forest complexes harbor many threatened and endemic flora and fauna and are formed by restrictive climatic conditions. One of our group members decided to go beyond the summit and test out the acoustics of the region. After soaking up the views and a quick lunch, it was soon time to head back down. It was not just us humans who were exhausted at this point. I was more than satisfied, not just at the amazing views and the trek, but also that my shoes had held together. On the way back, I decided to explore that grassy ledge that I had seen while coming up. You can see elephant dung in this region, and it's truly amazing how elephants are able to cover this kind of altitude. Many assume that the descent is far more easier, but this is not true. Going downhill faces an incredible amount of stress on your knees and ankles. Most of us were out of drinking water by this time, and we were glad to reach the big rock from where a trail led to a small stream. The water from here was cool and incredibly refreshing. We soon reached back at the forest checkpoint, where a glass of buttermilk helped replenish our energies. From there, it was a slow crawl back to our base camp. Thrill at the end of a long trek is not something one can put into words easily. And although exhausted, we gathered that night around the campfire to recollect our experiences of the day, before finally bidding farewell the next day and heading back to city life.